Okay, so we're back at Macy's Herald Square, and again we're celebrating Starter and the Big East, and I drop in the Big East jackets, the Beasts of the East Starter collection here at Macy's Herald Square, and the guy that started it all now, the guy that put this all together, two-time Super Bowl champ.
One time broke my heart. Go ahead.
One time broke your heart, I know, against Buffalo. I'm sorry about that, son.
It's okay.
Sure he's not going to apologize. I'm just.
I know.
He's not. Don't expect him to.
Not asking.
And owner of G3, and he got involved with Starter and put this whole thing together.
Talk about a legend.
Ring of Honor, one of the top 100 players of all time for the Giants franchise, the great Carl Banks. How are you, Carl?
I'm good, Chuck. And can I respectfully tweak what you said about celebrating Starter?
Sure.
Please do.
Starter is celebrating the Big East and the legacy of great coaches and great players, and that includes you guys. So I would like to think, and I thank you for saying you're celebrating Starter, but Starter is just paying homage to Big East basketball.
Yep. And listen, these jackets have been iconic since when we played back in the early 80s, mid-80s, you know. I mean, we talked about it earlier. The Georgetown jacket was the jacket to have. If you were anybody who was anybody had to have a Georgetown jacket, except if you played against them. Then it didn't count. Yeah, right.
It is Georgetown was kind of the staple in pop culture.
Yes,
for whatever reason. And I think you guys can tell us more about that. As a team, they resonated with pop culture.
Right.
Coach Thompson and some of the players that he had, they just kind of resonated with pop culture, and that jacket became kind of a status symbol.
Anybody who was anybody wanted one of those jackets.
Yeah.
And again, I mentioned Run DMC. One of the guys, Darryl, went to St. John's. And was wearing the Georgetown jacket, as he famously stated in the piece that we did for HBO called Perfect Upset. So how did this thing all come together, Carl? Talk about how this all jive together, because I got a call from you, and we were having trouble getting a particular university on board, right?
Yes.
And it begins with a V. We don't have to say the name.
Ends in an A.
So talk about that situation.
So I'm sitting with my head of marketing, Tony Shellman. We probably were on a golf course last summer, and I said, look, I want to do something around the Big East, because we had obviously a great relationship with St. John's, and Ed Cole told us, whatever you want to do with St. John's. And I've been a St. John's fan since I came to this area in 1984. And so me looking for great basketball, I just latched on to Big East basketball, and that was Mullen, that was Whittington, that was Axon Jackson, that was the truth, right? And I've been a fan ever since then. But I wanted to do more than just St. John's. St. John's is my focal point, right? And it's obviously my favorite, but there were so many stories to tell about the Big East, right? And one of the reasons why I wanted to reach out and talk to you guys was because you live those, right? But I'm not exaggerating when I say there was a period in college sports where the Big East had a chokehold on great players, great coaching, and great rivalries. Am I wrong?
No, yeah.
I mean, I've never, I'm from the Big Ten, right? And for those who are wondering, this is, how can you root for St. John's and you're a Michigan State Spartan? I'm in Michigan State's Hall of Fame. If St. John's and Michigan State plays each other, I'm rooting for Michigan State.
Of course.
If Michigan State loses, I got a great consolation prize. But I'm from the Big Ten, and there are some rivalries, right? But there was nothing like when you sit at home and watch Big East basketball. Because when I used to go back to Michigan after the season, and Georgetown is playing, everybody's watching. Right. Syracuse is playing, everybody's watching, right?
Especially ththose big Monday games,
correct.
Right? Yeah.
And so, it was just like the players, you guys became household names, more so than, I knew Clark Kellogg, right? I knew the Carters. I knew, Magic Johnson and that crew.
Right.
But like, it was something about Big East basketball that just had a chokehold on the genre at that time. And so I wanted to tell that story, right? Because adjacent to that, or a part of the fabric of that, was the Starter brand, right? UConn wore Starter jerseys, right, during that period. So Starter was such a part of the fabric of sport that I wanted to reintroduce that through storytelling,
right,
and interviews. And it's been a great start to the week, and we've got a few more days, but it's just incredible to be able to honor and pay homage to the greatness that is Big East basketball.
So I got to ask you this. You talked about rivalries, okay? And I can relate to what I'm about to tell you because I have the exact same situation at home, okay? You have only it's reversed. You have a daughter that went to Villanova.
Yes.
How does that work? Because I have a daughter that went to St. John's. So we go back and forth all the time. I have to come home with it today. I have to go to the Villanova game with St. John's gear for my daughter who won't talk to me if I don't come home with it.
How about this? Villanova, St. John's, and Seton Hall.
Oh, there you go. That's a trifecta.
3 of my 5 kids. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm hardcore St. John's, man, and I caught crap when Nova played St. John's in the Garden. I'm up on the Jumbotron, and somebody sends my daughter a picture, and she lives in L.A., and she's like, "What is this all about?" Like, but it's fun. But that's what the rivalry is about, and I think also because each university, and I would exclude maybe Pitt and Syracuse, but they were part of the community. They were small, right? Small student bodies, and Pitt's kind of a small student body, but like when you look at the I-95 corridor of teams, right?
Right.
They're community-based. Like they're teams of the city or whatever, and that's what makes it so much more special is because it's like you're playing an extended high school rivalry, right?
Right. Yep.
With the best players in the world, right? So that's what made it so cool. And when you look at it and you go to a game at St. John's, it's Queens. Everybody's coming out to root for the boys, right? You go Georgetown, the same thing. Philly, the same thing.
Yep.
And when I'm looking at today's Big East, right? And I'm looking at Villanova, and all of these kids look like Philly basketball players, right? You can look, and there's a certain look to,
right.
And then there's Eric Dixon, who's lighting up the whole country, leading the world in three-point percentage and scoring, and that's what Big East has always been known for, something great, right? St. John's is one of the top defensive efficiency teams, top 2, I believe.
Yeah.
Xavier is top 5 in three-point shooting. So it's a lot of what the Big East has stood for. It seems like it's coming back, right?
Yep.
Young coaches, great rivalries. Hurley is a personality in and of himself, right? If you want to,
he played that way too, though. I mean, it's exactly him.
If you wanted to draw on that and make a comparison, would it be Raleigh?
I would, yeah. A
combination.
I would say a combination
and,
of Louis and Raleigh.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, so I mean that's the character of Big East basketball, and man, I can't say enough about just being able to do this. And I know there are going to be people that watch this, and in particular Xavier and Creighton don't have jackets. We have product,
right?
T-shirts, sweatshirts, but we didn't have the jackets. We didn't have enough time, and I've gotten some calls, and we're going to address that, right?
Okay,
but
that's good.
And wait, you've gotten calls and you've answered them too.
I've answered every one of them. Yeah.
I have to say, and not just because you're sitting here, Carl. But that's a big man that do that. I mean, somebody's complaining, and it's on social media where you don't have to use your real name and all this other stuff, and they're complaining about the jackets. And you said, "Hey, my bad. I got you. Don't worry. I'll take care of it." That's big time, man. And hats off to you for that.
So
that's a leader.
As a leader, as a athlete, as a champion, accountability is important, right? So I have a whole team of people that at some point I could have pointed to one or two people to say, why didn't this happen, right?
Right.
But as a team, we ride together, we fall together, and we rise together.
Right.
Right? And at the end of the day, in 24 hours, all of the problems were fixed, right? Because we all put an effort into it, including the management here at Macy's, right? We had a delay, but we didn't have a denial. People were upset, and I got it. And I answered just about everybody, whether they were happy or super upset. I knew that they would be satisfied once the product hit the floor, and that is what happened. But it was a 2-day delay. It's actually a 24-hour delay.
Yep.
I want to play for this guy. Let's go.
Yeah, I get
ready.
it.
Got me ready.
You want to be my teammate? We have high demands, right?
Absolutely.
I got that.
Yeah.
I got that's clear.
Yeah. I believe in accountability, man, and that's to the folks at Xavier and Creighton, it's no slight. We literally ran out of time to do jackets, and full transparency, I wanted to focus on the legacy teams and infuse the others, right? And I ran out of time for jackets. Apparel, we got you, right?
Right.
Jackets later on this year, we will come to you on campus. Creighton and Xavier and Butler will be there, and we'll make sure that you have everything that everyone else has. But
you can believe that'll happen.
The legacy, was, and then also my generation of Big East, there was Syracuse.
I know. It's a sore wound for me.
Think about this though: the great Sherman, Douglas, Pearl Washington, rest in peace, right? And it was just Derek Coleman's a good friend of mine, right?
Yep.
You got Ronnie Cycli. It's just so much. But those and Jim Boeheim was just part of that whole
fabric of the 100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and I say that, and I'm and Marquette also. I'm super, super excited to be bringing this level of product to a new legacy of the Big East, and so that's what that is. And I'm a big fan of a lot of the players across all of these teams in the Big East, and I'm looking forward to building with them as well.
Yeah, and you talked about the different rivalries, and you talked before we came on the air about what a big year it is for the Big East. Let's talk about that for a second. It's the 45th anniversary of the conference, number one, and it's the 40th anniversary of having 3 teams from the same conference in the Final Four at the same time. Never been done before or since. Give me your thoughts on that.
That was one of the best Final Fours ever. But
I agree with you, by the way.
And then that year also,
I'm biased, but I agree with you.
Here's the other thing about that, Chuck. That year, I think the Big East put 6 or 7 teams in the NCAA tournament.
I think you're right. Yeah.
This year, there's a minimum of 6 that's going in.
Wow.
From what I've been reading, there's 6 in a bubble 7. So this could be a repeat. Of 85, right?
Well, your lips to God's ears, man.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's some very capable teams in the Big East that can scare the daylights out of people. And your alma mater, Villanova, they can be a little schizophrenic, if you will, or hot and cold.
That's a good way to
know. When it's hot, when they're hot,
there's
no. I mean, they can scare anybody, right? Because when they're locked in, man, they can score with anybody and they can defend. They got the size, they've got the length, and they got a guy who's a problem. Eric Dixon's a problem for everybody.
Yep. Wooga too. Wooga Poplar is pretty good too.
Yes.
He
flushed one yesterday. I thought he was going to take the whole building down.
Yeah.
They're top 5 offensive efficiency.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So you've been around now being a St. John's fan since 1984, as you said.
Yep.
There's highs and lows to being fans, you know, and you being on the other side of it for most of your life, right, being the player and not the fan. What's it like for you? Do you live and die with these guys? And then now the resurgence this year, you know, it started last year when Coach Pitino came in.
Yep.
Now he's here. Now they're balling, man. I mean, they're playing defense like it's nobody's business.
Yeah.
Talk about that and what you're going through now as a former athlete, you know, that now you're the fan. And what are you feeling on this ride?
So I had the pleasure of being fan and athlete all throughout this
right.
84. I kind of identify with the player. I identify with the fan, but I also, as a fan, understand player sensibilities, right?
Yep.
Meaning, we, especially in this town, we can be pretty harsh, right?
Oh, yeah.
We're knowledgeable fans, and there's so much of a microscope, right? So, but there's not a fan base that goes harder for their team than New Yorkers. When New Yorkers are up, we up, right? And once we up, they want us to stay up. But I think going through some of the lows, right? The Jarvis era and the unfortunate Chris Mullin era, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And this is, and we should talk about that too, because that's the part where I think the sensibility of fans did not kick in. He's the greatest player in St. John's history, and was literally run out of town. And so now he hasn't even been back, and I know deep down because he's from Queens.
Right. It's killing him, I can tell you.
Yes, and so I know he wants to be a part of this, and you know, Coach Pitino welcomes him with open arms, right? Ed Cole welcomes him with but I think it's some things he's got to work through, right?
Yeah,
but
100%.
That's the part, the difficult part when you're a great player and you go back and you coach your alma mater and it doesn't work out, you get treated like anybody else. And I think he deserved better.
Well, same thing happened to Patrick, right?
Yes.
Very similar.
Yes.
And both guys were terrific players. Both guys were on the 92 Olympic team.
Yeah, both guys.
Teams. Both guys are Hall of Famers. You know, and I think what happens is these guys were Hall of Famers that became basketball coaches. A guy like Jay Wright, I'm using him as an example, was a basketball coach that became a Hall of Famer. It's different. There's a lot more to it than just the X's and O's. Yeah. And sometimes because you're as a pro athlete, you getting pulled in a million directions, as you know all too well, right? These guys were getting pulled. They got away from that a little bit and now got thrown back into that again. And I didn't think that they were so keen about that, you know? Yeah, and and again, they wanted to do good, right? Of course. And I think fan bases, and look, I can't blame a fan, and I'm one, but I don't blame fans sometimes for wanting more. Right. Right, and not making an exception. If you wear the whistle on your neck, then you should. You got to own it. You got to own it, right? But then I can make the case for the dignified way that Jim Boeheim has been treated in Syracuse. Now he's got a lot more wins than both Patrick and and Chris, but there was some reverence paid, right? And when it was time for him to move on, they didn't just pull the rug and just say, get out. But there was no expectations on Boeheim. Boeheim was a player there, and he came from being a player to being an assistant to being the coach. There was no high expectations because he's a Hall of Fame guy, and he wasn't the hero of the university, of the basketball program. Patrick was the guy. Yeah. Chris was the guy. Yeah.
But even beyond their programs, those are two of the Mount Rushmores of the Big East. Correct. Players, the face of the Big East. I mean, the call that Dave Gavitt got from John Thompson, where they pulled him out of a meeting, and John Thompson says, "We got Patrick." Dave Gavitt turns and says, "Mike, we're going to the Garden, book it." And now we have the Big East tournament, longest running tournament in the Madison Square Garden.
And they're signed to go for 50 years.
Yeah, it's a storybook, right? Yeah. But those two guys are the foundation for it. So it's even beyond their school. They had the league on their back.
Yeah, and, to get back to your original question, as a fan, I can go through, what it was like as a long-suffering fan. St. John's, some lean years, right? And it's back, as I can say. Coach Fran was good, and then he wasn't, right? It was a lot of expectation for him, and it started off good, and then it just kind of dissipated, and they wanted him out, So, but that's the cycle. That's the vicious cycle of sports, and it's good to have.
What do you think the difference is? Is it just strictly Rick? Is it him getting to these guys? Is it the NIL? What do you think the difference is now?
I think it's all the above, right? If you listen to Rick, he says he's still learning how to coach these kids, right? A lot of his contemporaries said, "The hell with it. I'm not dealing with it," right? But if you see the viral video of when they were down to Providence, and they had that viral video when he challenged his team.
Yeah, that was awesome. We posted that, by the way.
He challenged his team in a way that he did in the 80s, in the 90s, because that speech was one that Bill Parcells would give.
I was going to ask you to take facts a little.
That's a Bill Parcells level
Massimino, too. I heard the same speech.
When he challenges every aspect of your DNA, right? And you respond instead of sulking, like a lot of kids,
right?
In certain programs, too much, I got to go on. I got to go play somewhere else. When you can connect with a kid at that level, and he connects with them because they play hella defense. That's the hardest thing to get your team to do. If they can shoot, they love the coach, right? But when a coach is demanding that you play defense, and screw your offense, let's play defense, those shots will come. Do you know? You guys know.
Yeah.
But folks at home don't know. Get your ass kicked on defense in practice, just pounding and pounding and pounding because somebody makes a shot and you're getting screamed at. Or you lose a guy in a switch and you get screamed at. That is the thing that will drive a kid out. I need an easier coach. Am I right?
Yeah, 100%.
100%.
Some of these kids will be like, I can't. I need to go into a different program. This is way too demanding. But to be able to have a team that's completely bought in defensively, which means you can talk to them, right? You can connect to them in a language that probably they weren't used to hearing in AAU, right?
Oh,
but it's a basketball language. He's speaking a basketball language that these kids now have bought into, right? And a lot of coaches are afraid to do that because they may lose a kid, right? I think Coach Pitino showed a level of vulnerability there.
Yeah.
In today's college basketball is not yesterday's, right? So some of this messaging, he took a risk, right? But that's good instincts too, right? That's why he's a championship coach. That's why
he's
everywhere he goes, he turns it around in two.
But I think too, my answer is he puts so much into it.
Yes.
Right? That those guys have to do the same. If you're willing to do it, I'm willing to do it.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's the message that I get loud and clear.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, they see his effort. And he's got the right group of kids, right? The right level of leadership, because it's always important when your best players buy in.
Right.
Right. If Zuby Ejiofor can play defense, if Kadari Richmond can play defense, if R.J. Lewis can play defense, then Simeon Wilcher and the rest of them are going to buy in too.
Right.
Because these guys are busting their humps. Right, their overtime win, the last game of the season that gave them the outright championship.
And Marquette.
Oh yeah.
Everybody talks about the Simeon to Zuby game winner. That was made possible.
Kadari
Richmond.
Yeah.
right?
With the deflection.
He had the triple-double, but the defensive play was the biggest play of the game.
Right.
Right, and it was at a point where, okay, we're going overtime. Or there was just very nonchalant, but they play till the very last horn.
And that in today's college basketball, but it's universal across sports, right? When you see a team that can buy in, you can normally see the championship mentality just by the way players respond in more of a disciplined way and respond to their coach. They are all connected, right? And they're not disconnected of a guy, me versus them, and coach is tripping. I don't know if I'm going to be here next year, right? When you can get them to buy in, and like you said, coach has pelts on the wall, obviously, but that means nothing to a new generation. You got to find somewhere to connect with those kids or these kids, and he's doing a hell of a job of it.
Yeah, he is. And
so much.
When you get him to buy in especially on the defensive side, nobody wants to play defense. Nobody.
And if you buy in on defense, you're normally not a very good offensive player, right? You're the try-hard guy who you made the team and you broke into the starting lineup because you're willing to dive on the floor.
You got the floor burns all over your legs, yes.
Right, but he's got 5 of them that's doing that, and they're pretty good on the other side of the basketball, too.
Especially the kid, you mentioned him, R.J. Lewis. I mean, unbelievable season he had. Yeah. Well-deserved player of the year, How far do you think these guys can make a run in the big tournament?
So when you look at the top ranking, in my opinion, amongst the top 15 teams, how well do they play defense?
Oh, they're in the top 2 or 3.
Exactly. So when you want to know who can go how far, you better look at how they're ranked defensively. St. John's, Michigan State, they can guard you, and when they're shooting, the margin of victory is big. If they're not shooting well, the margin of victory is slim. And if they lose, it's going to be a tight game because they never let you out. They never let you run away with the game. So when you look at those 2 teams, and Houston's another team, they're long. You look at the defensive efficiencies of team, not the offense.
Right.
But can you defend? That's where I think they have a chance to get to the Final Four.
I agree with you, but here's the other piece of that. I mean, as somebody who went to the end and got to the end, you got to have breaks, you got to have bounces, you got to stay healthy, and you got to have a little luck on your side sometimes, where the ball's got to go a certain way here or there, and that's what makes it March Madness, because you never know who's going to come out of where. You look at the Duke team. Cooper Flagg got hurt today. They pushed him out in a wheelchair. He sprained his ankle. Hopefully it's not broken and he's going to be okay. But, you look at the St. John's teams, they create – their best offense to me is their defense, where they create a turnover and then they get out and go. If you can slow them down and make them set up and shoot threes and stuff, you got a chance. But if you don't, they can make a lot of noise. They can get to a Final Four.
Yeah, and – I think when you talk about a team like St. John's, who we know they can defend, but they do have shooters.
Right.
Like you can look at Kadari Richmond on any given series of plays. Shot looks ugly, flat.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, he gets one going, and it looks like a totally different shot, but it's the same shot. So they can create their own breaks. And when you talk about lucky, getting a little bit of luck, health, all of that. Health is number one, but, Coach Parcells used to tell us you create your own luck. But that doesn't come by accident.
Right.
That's the effort that you put in all throughout the year.
Right.
Case in point, the steal by Kadari to Simeon to Zuby, game winner.
Yep.
That's the luck, right? Because it's unfortunate that the kid from Marquette has the ball and he doesn't know he's going to get tapped from behind, but that's
also a sign of buying in too.
Yes.
Because there was no selfishness on that at all.
Correct.
If I had the ball, I'm not looking to be the game-winning shot or take the game-winning shot. I mean, I got it to the guy who was open at the right time in the right place and bucket the game.
Yeah.
So
offense sells tickets. Defense wins games.
That's
Rebounds wins championships.
That's right.
And they rebound their tail
defense travels, believe me. Yeah.
Right.
So we're running a little bit short. We've got to have you come back and talk football with us when we do,
absolutely.
the real show. We'll do that.
Oh, man.
We had Leonard Marshall on. We had a great time talking to him about the Giants.
What a guy. What a
Good
great
dude.
guy.
So, as we asked everybody, what is your starter jacket moment for you?
So my starter story, I have a few, but I would say the most incredible starter story for me was my teammate Pepper Johnson. And, New York nightlife is New York nightlife. And it was a Thursday night in New York City. We take a limo to the Red Parrot nightclub. Our limo pulls up. We get out. There's another limo behind us. We don't know who it is, but somebody gets out and they just start screaming, "Yo, Pepper Johnson, Carl Banks, yo!" We turn around, it's DMC. DMC gets out of the car with a Giant starter jacket on. And he's like, "Giants, baby, Giants, baby." And that was just the most iconic starter story for me. And there's many, but that one was just like, this says it all. And then we've all become friends over the years, Daryl and I, and Pepper was really close with JMJ, rest in peace. But, it was just an incredible moment for me. That's my starter story.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's a good one. Yeah. For me, we got as you know, we got the jackets after we won.
Yeah.
And they had the embroidery on the side. I sent you one of the ones.
Yes.
It was funny because it was Wyatt Maker, who was the other backup center like myself on the team. His wife was sporting that because he had no shot of putting that thing back on. It was a 2X back in the day, and now it's probably closer to a 4. But so it was, and everybody had a comment, to make even today. So I can't believe how one piece of clothing like that had such an impact, not only on the culture but on people in general, that when they see it, they go, "Oh, that's a starter jacket." They know immediately what it is.
Yeah, it's the most iconic piece of clothing in all of sport. Because it literally made fandom a wearable experience.
Yeah.
And once it became a wearable experience, it became a fashionable experience because it became about the logos, the colors. Nobody ever cared.
Right.
Until David Beckerman of Starter really stylized how people viewed and ingested their sport.
Right. Well, thank you so much, first of all, for supporting us. We appreciate what you did on ESPN Radio and through Twitter and X and all that stuff.
Listen.
Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for letting us be a part of this great event, and thank you for your friendship.
Thank you and everything that you guys have done. Again, myself and my team at Starter and the brand Starter, we're just here to pay homage to the legacy and the greatness of the Big East, and thankful to our mutual friend Wayne Smallwood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who put us together. When I said, "Wayne, do you think Chuck would be a part of this Big East?" He's like, "Call him." And I did. And you're like, "Yeah, just give me the details. It'd be great." And this has been phenomenal for this experience, period. This whole week, and we wanted to drop it during the Big East tournament, like I told you when we first.
Perfect.
And this has just been great because fans can come and they've been here all day watching this and shopping, and it's just been great.
Yep. Well, thanks, man. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
We've been with Carl Banks of the New York Giants, 2-time Super Bowl champion, right here at Macy's Herald Square.
Thanks to the great people at Macy's, too. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for everybody.